Okay, let's call the Monday, March 21st, 2022 Select Board meeting to order. I'm hearing an echo, but any agenda additions or changes from staff?
We do have one from staff. We'd like to give you an update on tree farm management. We'd like to discuss that in executive session under contracts. It's based on some discussions we had today after the packet went out last week.
Okay. Any changes from board members? All right. Somebody want to make a motion? Amend the agenda?
I make the motion, we amend the agenda. I make the motion, we accept the agenda as amended. How's that? Better?
All right.
Second.
A second?
I seconded.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Any further discussion? I think speakers are on over in that corner there. Sounds like. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Greg, I assume we will get, do we have the motions we need somewhere?
Yes, it's the same motion to enter executive session.
Ah, okay, so we'll just, okay, great. Okay, so then, moving on to public to be heard. This is the point of the agenda where members of the public can address the board on topics which are not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak during public to be heard, you can either raise your hand if you're in the room or online. Use the raise hand function in there. If you'd like to address the board, please be brief. Please be civil. Please refrain from using inappropriate language. Address your remarks to me, Andy Watts, as the select board chair. Do not attack other members of the public. Do not attack town staff, please. And also, if you are attending remotely, please mute your microphone and leave your camera off to avoid distraction. Okay. So, I am going to start in the room here. Anybody in the room wishing to speak during public to be heard? Yeah, come on forward. State your name.
My name is Michael Peterson. I live at 77 Saxon Hill Road. In the last 2 weeks, the glass recycling plant has gone online to manufacture to do whatever they're doing, and it has really disrupted our quality of living. We abut right up to the facility. They're operating equipment at all hours of the night, a loud, very loud bucket operation at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It is also emitting a very toxic plastic smell. We will not be able to have our windows open this summer. Our quality of living in 2 weeks is gone out the window. It is been destroyed. What are our property taxes going to be? I mean, why do, our property is going to be worth nothing. Nobody's going to come and say, wow, this is beautiful. We have equipment operating at, I have it on video, 2:30 in the morning. Banging these buckets, ka-ting, 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 ka-ting. Neil lives a half a mile away. He was awoken 2 nights ago by the bucket, half a mile away. I'm 500 feet away with the front of my house, guest bedrooms right there. They'll never, we're semi-panicking on what do we do? How are we going to be able to sell our house? We've already started looking to move, like panicking. It's not fair. I'm not looking to make them stop doing what they do. They just can't be operating equipment at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And my well is in my front yard, the plastic. Can they guarantee me, I have an 8-year-old son, can they guarantee me that what is coming out of that factory isn't toxic? Smoke, the smell. If you smelt it, you would think something was terribly wrong. There were 2 men there for the town last week working on the road going, what's that smell? I said, that's my neighbor. Yeah, isn't that pleasant? We were more than 100 yards away. Like I said, I just want to be a good neighbor. That's all I want people to be to me, is a good neighbor. Respect me. They say high fences make good neighbors. There's not a fence high enough right now. the situation. You know, we knew the building was going in. We knew something commercial was going in when we purchased our home. We took that chance. You know, we figured it'd be like Reinhardt or the other ones. We hear they're air conditioned. That's it. We know they operate 24/7. We hear very little from them. This is not that way. This is, if it were in, if you would, it's quite appalling that anybody would even do it, to be honest with you. When you go into something and you look at the front of somebody's beautiful home and you're there in a excavator at 4 a.m, wiggling the thing back and forth so the bucket clanks and empties, you know, that's like no respect for anything. It's like, I don't get it, to be honest with you. You know, I've spoken to representatives, so I'm here to figure out what we can do. I would like it all to be civil. Like I said, I just want to be a good neighbor. But if we have to come up with some type of ordinance or something so this can't happen, it can't happen. You know, I would hate for this to happen to somebody else. You know, I would love for you people to come and be at my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll cook you dinner. Anything, but to come there and stand in my house at 3 o'clock in the morning on my patio, on my deck, and hear that, you would absolutely say totally 1,000% unacceptable. 1,000%. You know, they leave, the people who work there, at the end of the day. I don't. I go home to dinner. Now I got to think about being inside. You know, we moved here to be outside. We moved from New Jersey to be outside. All I want to do is be another tree in the woods. That's all I wanted. You know, I
Right.
don't know where we go from here.
Yeah, I know you've called a number of us during the week or during the past week, and
Yep.
I don't know, has there been a chance to come together with a response, or do we have?
So I spoke to the CEO of Glavel last week.
He
and
reached
this-
out to me this morning.
Yep.
I have not replied because I would like to have a meeting with some select board members and perhaps Greg there, so it doesn't become a he said, I didn't say that. Well, you know, one of those situations. You know, I don't, you know, am I going to have to hire lawyers? You know, I don't feel I should have to hire a lawyer for this. You know, this should have been due diligence of the planning board to who gave this okay. You know, this should have been more thought out. I feel, you know, my house didn't just appear yesterday. You know, it's not like they went there and, you know, there wasn't a house there. You know, somebody had to have known of what the process is, of what the emissions, what the noise is. You know, I didn't, when they came in the spring and I got the letter that said, oh, they want to put up a tower, they want to do this. We didn't fight them. We're like, the trees are going to grow. You know, we won't see it. You know, it'll be good.
Go ahead, Mike. Greg.
No, that so and we can talk about how to have that meeting with the CEO of Glavel. It's also they're operating under the state permit as well, the Act 250 permit, which is part of the players. So we'll have to get the state involved and take a look at the Act 250 permit as well as our local.
Yeah,
approval-
whatever we
approval
need to do. I want it to be civil.
Yep.
You know, I want it to be easy. I just want it to be fair. You know, that's all I want at the end of the day. You know, I want to be able to go outside and play with my kid and not smell plastic and not worry about, you know, God forbid, developing something because he's playing out in his yard. I don't think that's unreasonable. Thank you for hearing me.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else in the room for public to be heard?
I'm Neil Villeneuve. I'm at 27 Saxon Hill Road, and as Mike said, I actually drove it before I came here. It's 4/10 of a mile away from the facility down there. And yeah, Sunday morning I was woke up at about 2 a.m. with that bucket clanging. I mean, they're really shaking it down there to get the material out. So yeah, the noise, and that's with the windows closed. So I was just wondering, how's that going to be this summer with the windows open? It's waking me up now. Loud.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? When the planning permit was issued, would hours of operation have been posted? Part of that permit process?
The state is what approved the 24/7 operations. I'd have to take a look at our permit to see if we had any other conditions around it based on hours.
Any kind of noise ordinance?
There's not an hours ordinance for the town.
We did have a public nuisance ordinance that is waiting for the police department to review and address some concerns and bring back to us. And I believe that that does touch on after hours noise.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be something we asked to come back.
Hope I'm public.
Yeah, unfortunately, there may be a problem with chronology, right? If something was already in existence and then you put an ordinance in place, is it allowed because it was prior to? We'll have to work out through all those questions. But yeah, there's a lot of
Well, from what I understand, village put dumpster that could be picked up
Sure,
before
sure.
7 a.m.
Yep.
I'm
Okay.
sure those companies up at 5 a.m. previous had to start operating off.
Yeah.
What would stop that from happening?
All right. Any other comments or questions? That's a good point.
Are you gonna arrange a meeting then? Put your-
Yeah, let's be in touch, Mr. Peterson, and figure out a time.
Okay. Come on up, identify yourself or state your name.
My name is Bill Norris. I'm at 59 Saxon Hill Road. I'm about a third of a mile back from this plant, the Glavel plant. I have noticed noise outside. I have been fortunate. I have not noticed the noise inside the house. But as we get closer to the summer months, I'm a bit concerned about that.
Mm.
I'm also very concerned about the plastic smell neighbors have told me about. I have not experienced that myself, but I'm also inside a lot more right now. And once we get outside, I'm worried we're going to be smelling that. I have 3 kids, young kids, and I'm a bit concerned about it. So I missed out on the process to communicate my concern. Our notification for this project got hung up in the mail. And unfortunately, by the time I got it, it was too late. So I would have liked to have commented if I could have. I did talk directly with the owner, the CEO of Glavel. He's seemingly interested in being a good neighbor. I hope he continues doing that, and I hope we can find a way to work together. I agree. I think it's nice that they can do what they can do, but I would like to have a little consideration given to the people that live around them. So, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Irene.
Hi, Irene Runner. Looking at this in the bigger picture, I've heard complaints from people who live on the other side of the Saxon Hill Industrial Park about how the Resource Preservation District, industrial, has not, over the years, been in harmony with nature, and that was, I believe, one of the major requirements when it was set up. And over time, it's just been eroded. And this tells me that the other side of the Saxon Hill Industrial Park is now also kind of just not going to be natural anymore. I, as a reporter, stopped by on Saturday to witness the smells and the sounds of what's going on there. Something must be done. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Irene. Anybody else in the room? Okay, there's a number of hands up online. Raj Chawla.
Hey, Raj Chawla, Essex Junction, Essex. Sorry to do this because it's already started out kind of a little negative for the meeting, but it's getting warmer. Pearl Street Park is getting busier with disc golfers, which means it's getting busier with people drinking in the playground and around the park as they play golf through the entire park. Been there every day for the past couple weeks with the new puppy, and literally every day that there have been golfers in there. There's kids on the play structure, and there's grown men with beer in the park. So I enjoy a good craft brew myself, but this is a town park, and I would hope that maybe y'all could communicate to get some signage up, get some coverage there, and get some communication out to the organization that helps run that facility and that program at the park to get the word out that that's just not acceptable. Middle of a neighborhood, middle of a playground, Second thing is, and you all who know me will know this is literally the only time I will agree with Irene. Saxon, I'm a little dismayed, haven't been up there to ride my bike yet this year, but really hoping the first time I go up there to ride for a few hours, I'm not chased out by that smell. That's one of the crown jewels in Chittenden County for mountain biking, and it would be a shame if that's the new norm at one of the premier early and late season mountain biking locations. Thanks for everything you're doing.
All right, thanks, Raj. Margaret Smith.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. As far as the smell, before I knew about this issue, I remember walking my dog out in my own yard. I'm not too far from the elementary. Hello? I'm not too far from the elementary school, and I was smelling some really strange stuff in my yard going, and I have no idea where that smell is or where it's coming from. But if I can smell it, then it's drifting over to the elementary school. And it's a serious air pollution issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Chaya?
Hi. Also Saxon Hill Road, 51 Saxon Hill Road, and my husband and myself are both here just to agree and thank our neighbors for saying something. We also have 2 small children, and we can both hear it year round, 24 hours a day, and we can smell the bad smell. And so just adding our voice of concern. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sharon Zukowski? Alan, could you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Sharon Zukowski? Muted. Unmute you. Don't know that I have that power, Sharon. Let's move on to Lorraine and see if we can get Sharon unmuted. Lorraine, go ahead.
Thank you, Andy. Lorraine Zaloom. I also have concerns about RPDI and the amount of waivers that are being passed along from out of our planning commission for the buffers, which really, to me, buffers should be also noise sound buffers, light buffers, not just tree buffers. As the pines grow up and get high, and the deciduous fall, the deciduous lose their leaves in the fall, you can see straight through. Also, we're seeing more waivers of the trees being cut down and just being replaced with 2 trees along Corporate Drive. Also concerns about the smells not being in keeping in harmony with the environment, and that is not even included in our planning commission in terms of pollution. And hopefully there's some way to be able to scrub the air, and certainly sound in terms of quality of life, that has to be added in somehow. So some of my concerns are because I'm seeing a new Al Senecal as a developer has proposed some major changes to our RPDI to start developing that area. And we are out, we lost a WISO, so we are severely understaffed while we're working on ordinances for different zoning. And RPDI is the crown jewel, as Raj said. And I definitely agree with Irene and Raj, and certainly hearing our neighbors. And from the gentleman who's from Newark or from New Jersey, I lived in New Jersey for a long time too, sir. And that sounds almost like what it reminds me of when I flew into Newark, and you could always smell that plastic smell. And if Newark can have cleaned up that smell, certainly Essex can do something about it. So I hope that we're all paying attention. I hope people start going to planning commission meetings, because this is where it starts. And if we want to stop this in its tracks, we got to show up in unison. And I would love to get together with some of these people that are struggling over there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lorraine. Sharon Zukowski, were you able to,
Yeah, there's something going on where who knows.
There-
Um,
I can hear you.
yeah, I had to sign in again. It was saying the host wasn't going to let me in. I thought I was being kicked out of the meeting. Just a brief chime in. I mean, about the what is the name of the company that's doing the mining or whatever over there?
It's Clavel.
The Sclavel, yeah. The pollution and noise might also be a civil or criminal issue for the state statute too. So that might be something probably the town can't look into, but maybe the people that are right next to it could look into that also. You know, it might be illegal, criminally state statute or a civil issue for pollution. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Sharon. Yeah, I'm not seeing any other. Adam Randolph.
Yeah, my wife Kaya just spoke for me, but I just wanted to also raise my hand and say that I'm here from 51 Saxon Hill Road, in support of the cause that the other Saxon Hill Road folks are voicing and our concern over the smell and the noise pollution. Just to add another voice to the mix. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, Adam. Sue.
I'm just reading their website, Level, and they are creating this for passive houses, right? It has an environmental focus. So,
Right, if they're having some nasty, noxious emissions, that seems counter to their mission.
it does seem counter to their mission.
I also think that we probably need to keep in mind that they are creating the product here for the first time. They've started up. There may be some smells associated with the beginning of construction for the plant, and also, we are going to, sounds like, meet with the owner of Glavel and the town manager. To be frank, I hesitate to have select board members there because we don't have power outside of our meetings, and it requires a vote of the 5 of us to have any impact. It's definitely something that the town manager should assume. I'm not sure that we should try to be suggesting lawsuits at this point in time. I think that we need to investigate, obviously, and have the town manager work with the CEO of Glavel. Certainly hearing your concerns, and we'll take them, but I don't know if it's terribly productive for us to sit here and make assumptions about what their regular business is. The concerns that have been brought to them, I have not heard whether or not they've responded to them or if they've had a chance to respond. So I would caution us to maybe avoid throwing out lawsuits or criminal complaints because simply it hasn't been looked at yet. Give us some time to investigate, and then we'll come back with a proper response.
Greg.
Yeah, and when I spoke to the CEO of Glavel, they fully recognize that they're an environmental company, and the words essentially were, "This would be brand destroying if they're found out to be polluting the environment." So they're absolutely hoping to find a solution and work with the neighbors. Part of what they said too is that through the Act 250 permit, as they start up operations, they're going to adjust if they need to, as they need to comply with that Act 250 permit. So I think that they're open to having conversations and trying to adjust what they can do, and we can have that meeting and figure out how to make it work for everybody, hopefully.
That's all I want. And as we just want a select board member there just for somebody to hear the conversation, not even necessarily to put their 2 words in, just to be like, so when something is said later on down the road, somebody could be like, well, that really wasn't said, or that was said. Maybe you don't remember that. That's all I was looking for with having people other there than myself and the person president of the corporation, because he's going to clearly look out for the corporation, right? Am I wrong in assuming that? So that's my only reason for having other people there, is because I know he's looking out for his best interest, what he's paid to do.
That's why we have our town manager as well.
Okay.
Okay, Mary Post.
Hi, Andy. I just want to say that I can't get a picture on my computer, and I don't know if you have a tech person there that can fix it, but it looks like, when you look at Jeopardy, the screen, it's exactly what it looks like. And you've got little pictures. Most of them are just blank spots with names, but I can see you and I can see the select board, but you're tiny. So I'm wondering if there's something that can be fixed so we can really see the meeting. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mary. Gina.
Hi. I just wanted to add my support to the RPDI neighbors. We are on the other side, we're on the Sandhill side. And the bigger picture really is that I hope the community, as the Planning Commission works on their zoning, that we add in consideration for the neighborhoods. It's been an ongoing battle for years for us. We're behind, they're great neighbors though, but we're behind Blodgett, and they didn't have anything to do with the development of that actual property. But there needs to be more consideration for noise berms, for the environment, and mitigation for the impact that these huge industrial type companies moving in have on the surrounding area, and long-term the environment. Just for my kids, I'd like my kids to have kids and see trees in the future. So thank you. I'm just adding my support.
Thanks, Gina. All right, I don't see any other hands online. Any board member comments or questions? So, all right. So I will move on to the first business item, which is discussion and potential action on tentative agreements about shared services between Town of Essex, Independent City of Essex Junction. There were some responses from the trustees on the 3 agreements that are still being discussed. Didn't bring them up, but I can do that. So I think we had reviewed these and provided some feedback, and then they've come back yet again. I guess starting with the clerk treasurer agreement, I think there was agreement that we wanted to pull the date in or make it a fixed date of June 30th, 2023. I think I believe the trustees were okay with that. I think that was the only change in that one. Oh, there was another one. They still have we had added the clause about when applicable, the United States District Court. They're still having discussions with their counsel on that. So, Sue.
So in the email that came with, or I don't know whether it was the first email or a second email that Greg forwarded on from Brad, it said that the trustees think it makes sense that this agreement, the clerk treasurer agreement, should come out of the MOU. They are saying, just like the finance agreement, it is relevant now and has no bearing on the formation of the city or not.
I guess I would suggest that it does, given that because we still have an entanglement there with the shared clerk. The only thing I was actually asking for originally when bringing this up back early on was I wanted a timeline as to when we needed to have our own clerk, and this clearly states that. And it gives it a definitive end date. And that's really what all I was looking for. So I don't know what do other members think about the relevance of this agreement, I guess.
I would prefer a stay. But...
Thanks, Don. Anybody else? Or any other comments? Anything else? I think the only thing that's still in question then is the that final clause about which court can be reviewed in.
And so they put the changes in blue because we're the ones that added when applicable last time. Right. Now their changes in blue. So that means do they accept that or not?
There's a comment next to it that says trustees are seeking further advice from legal counsel on this suggested addition edit, and we'll discuss further on 322. Is there meetings tomorrow night?
John, it's the blue highlighted text, not the blue text.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Right, and it actually just overlaps with what we had
Right.
crossed
Yeah,
out
okay.
to say the June 2023 date.
I mean, we worked on this. I'd like to see it stay that way, and I'd like to see the wording stay in it too.
Well, I don't think they're saying that this agreement doesn't need to exist. It's that it shouldn't be referenced in the MOU, is my understanding. What they're requesting.
Again, I think it just makes it clear where the separation, the final date of disentanglement is. It makes it very clear on both sides. And we had taken out the ifs in there because it's going
Right.
to end whether separation occurs or not. That's true. I guess having said that, maybe that's a way to look at it, but I think it's kind of a semantic question at that point, whether you include it or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd keep it in as well. We've gotten this far with the agreement. The language is all pretty much spot on. Like, it just seems if we've gotten this close to it, why not?
Yeah, we're pretty close to agreement on this
Yeah,
agreement,
exactly. Right.
Yep,
It's,
yep.
boils down to like a sentence that's probably, legal specific rather than anything else. So,
Yep. Okay. Right, any other comments? Okay, on the financial services agreement, the word will has changed to may. I think the intent there from the trustees, so this is with regard to the location of the where the finance department will work. The way it was originally worded, it said that the town would continue to provide workspace for the village finance employees until the agreement ended. I think the request here is to allow the village the option to move their folks out earlier. I also read this to say that we can decide to relocate their finance employees too if it works to our benefit. So it's not a one-way may, it's a two-way may. Any concerns with that or thoughts about that?
If they're ready to go sooner, they'll go sooner, basically. Right?
Yeah, I believe the village might be open to putting an end date on that. Speaking to our finance department, it's not the end of the world. It might even be helpful in some cases to be able to operate out of the same spot. I don't want to hold two office spaces open indeterminately because we can certainly use that space. Would be my concern, but I think that there's enough flexibility within there, especially if there's a date assigned to it, to have some ability to plan around what how the space can be used in the next year and a half.
That's a good point that you'd mentioned that the other day and I kind of forgot about it, right? Because this also carries with it a potential implication that even after they have space available at 2 Lincoln Street, they could also choose to work here and then we could potentially have empty office space or unused office space that we'd have to keep in reserve for when they want to work in our building. Yeah, Stu, go ahead.
So two things. When we've discussed this agreement previously, it was always with the frame that it was beneficial for the two departments to be co-located. And that's why I understood we were going down that path and ensuring that there was space at 81 Main so that the teams could work together. What's changed that is no longer viewed as something that is...
The village has hired their own finance director, and their new finance director doesn't believe they need to be co-located for as long as Sarah had requested.
Yeah, I think it's now that they're actually in the process of separating the financial services between remote work, working from on Microsoft Teams and electronically anyways. They're finding out that they can do some of this work without being side by side. There's still going to be times where it's going to be useful to sit next to each other and work through some of those things face to face. But it's not proving as challenging. No, shouldn't say that. It's still a challenging topic and a big project, but they don't necessarily, the two finance directors don't necessarily have to be sitting next to each other at all times to make it happen.
And the teams don't need to be.
Correct. But there is still some overlap, and that's why I said it's
just
still.
that was so like kind of, assertively identified previously, and now it's fine. We pivot, right? The second thing was on the point of the end date, which was in also one of the emails, right? It was referenced 7/1/23 as a potential target for that move to happen on or before, right? So I thought we should add something in the item number 6 termination clause to identify where we had previously struck the sentence that starts with the finance directors and municipal managers shall set out a timeline for the transition. And then it says of the village finance department out of 81 Main Street. I think we should, instead of just striking that language, identify that the target that's being worked towards for that transition out of 81 Main is July 1st of 2023.
Then what do you do with the date above here where June 30th, 20?
Don, I can't hear you.
Well, I think she's asking about the 2025 date. That's for completing all of the
the whole separation,
disentangling, but
so
this
you
is
propose okay.
This is just talking about the
Changing buildings.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Thank you.
So, okay, so you're right. You're just talking about the transition of the office space
Yes.
as the July 1, 2023 date. Yeah, we can. We'll be talking. Then our joint meeting is a week from tonight, right? So that's the point where we would have that discussion. And the question, I guess, then to the trustees, are they okay with having a specific date in there, given potential unknowns in their timeline? I don't know how fleshed out their timeline is for construction or renovation.
I don't know.
Yeah,
But to Greg's concern, that it can't be
in both places.
open-ended because then you have
Yeah.
office space that is being identified for that purpose and maybe not being used.
Right. Okay. So you're and I guess that's coincident. You're consistent. I guess that's the word I was looking for, with what was in the email we got from Brad as well. Okay. So I guess that would be the thing to propose, is that we put in an explicit date in there for physical transition out of the building.
Yeah, and I think he had some caveats about, provided that is not disruptive to finance function or, something like that.
Right. Looks like you have some comments.
Yeah, knowing, isn't that obvious? Knowing how timelines typically operate for construction and renovations, I would hesitate to put a hard date in this agreement. I'm not seeing anywhere in here where it specifically states that the town manager would have to allocate specific workstations to the future city finance department. It just says that they may both operate from 81 Main. I think that can be handled from an administrative perspective. And I think it's fine just to leave that open and handle it from the manager's office.
Thanks.
I agree with Tracy. I believe it's in there. the finance directors and municipal managers shall set out a timeline for the transition and a date for the termination of this agreement. Part of that setting of timeline for the transition is just between the municipal managers, and honestly, I don't think that the changes from May are anything about needing workstations or reserve space or anything like that. They just want the option to, if they can leave early and they're comfortable with it, then they want to have that option. And I think since it does go both ways, I think that's fair, and I would prefer to just leave it as it is. It seems like it's in here without specifically calling out already.
And sorry, go ahead.
I was just, I mean, so I just want to make sure I'm hearing it correctly, because what you were referencing again was the actual disentangling, the completing of all the activities. And what we were assigning a date to was when there is a target for not needing to have office space available for the village finance
Right.
department.
I just don't know that it's necessary to put specifically in here. I don't think that's going to become an issue, and I do believe that it is the phrase set out a timeline for the transition can cover both the full pull apart, but also within that timeline it can include specifics of office space. Again, that's just I feel like it's a conversation between the managers and not put in this agreement.
So in that case, should the line that has been struck here be unstruck, which is set out a timeline for the transition of the village finance department out of 81 Main Street? Because at this point, that's not in here. That's been struck.
Right. Yeah, it seems like it's softening that language there.
I think that would make sense to unstrike that language just to make sure that that's included.
Agreed.
Right. Don, did you have?
Well, I'm just saying if that next section under the amendment doesn't cover this anyway, says the parties may enter into a new written agreement which expressly supersedes this agreement, or this agreement may be amended or modified by mutual written agreement of the parties. So if construction is held up and you do need to change the date, you could go ahead and do it, right? Is that what that means? Or if the disentangling takes longer than they think, then that date could be modified, or it's quicker than they think. And that amendment allows them to come back and ask for a new date without us entering any new dates in this current contract.
Yeah, and the term, section number 1 says that it will expire on June 30th of 2025 unless terminated earlier per section 6.
Okay. So that would or wouldn't cover this change if necessary.
I think you can, keeping the language in that was struck gives it a little bit more specificity. I think otherwise the transition is part of all of that. So I honestly don't feel strongly one way or the other. I think we can work it out at the manager level with the finance directors.
So that phrase is blue highlighted and struck through. Did we strike that out, or did they strike it out? Sorry.
That was a village strike through.
Okay, so it sounds like the consensus is we want to ask to add that back in, and I'm not in favor of putting a date in that we think we might have to change later, even though we can. If it's left this way, it can be done without select board action. I think it can trust the two management teams to do the right thing.
We might want to, we might want to try to, we might want to understand why they struck that.
Yeah, we can.
I wonder if it's because, do we need to add language that, that they're transitioning out of 81 Main if they actually are inhabiting the space in 81 Main, right? Maybe there's some, I don't know, I'm playing chess in my head, but maybe they're thinking that they're not going to be in that space. So then therefore, if it says something about transitioning out, then it's, I don't know. to me, it just doesn't apply. So, but if it does apply, there should be language there.
Okay.
Yep. Good enough.
I assume at least someone from the trustees is watching tonight and hearing that question. So I'll talk about it tomorrow night. Anything else on the finance? It's got that same legal clause. All right. Let's move on then to Recreation Indian Brook Senior Center, and so we had proposed accepting all of their different the things that they were objecting to that we had asked about before, but then we pulled the date back into December 31 of 2023. The only, I think, remaining question, well, there's a couple of remaining questions in here, but I guess I'll start with the first question is, now, I understand that during the meeting when this was discussed, I wasn't at, it was the discussion about keeping the senior center at 2 Lincoln Street was made, and that's why that language was added to this document. And now I think the question is relative to when as they've learned more about what renovations they're going to need in the building. It's my understanding that they're expecting to have to at least temporarily relocate the senior center activities because of the stuff being worked on overhead in that because of the condition of the floor upstairs. And so and Andrew and I talked about this last week, late in the week, and we were talking about, we posed the question of whether we should change this to be specific from being specific at 2 Lincoln, the same, I think it says the same space. They've crossed out the existing space, right? And put some language in here that says adequate and appropriate space or something like that, that allows, continuity, without being exactly the same space. And I understand that there are many people, several people have expressed to me that, that are members of that organization that are very protective of their space and want to maintain it. But I think with the need to do construction above it, I don't know. Sue, go ahead.
Yeah, that was exactly where I made a note that if it can't be the existing space because of, logically or logistically, right, there's going to be reasons why they may temporarily not be able to be in the existing space. But it sounds like the intent is a good intent to at least provide space. And I think your desire to add words like adequate or appropriate space makes it, it is, if we're going to remove existing because existing may not be feasible throughout the construction, then at least ensuring that there is adequate and appropriate space. And will that still be at 2 Lincoln?
I don't know.
Says that in the agreement.
Okay.
I suppose that could be a modification to the agreement if something else is proposed. But as it reads right now, that's what it says.
Unfortunately, in the letter that came with this, it says, I don't think anyone could commit to space minimums and expectations. We're expecting them to have the same amount of space they have now.
I think that's part of the conversation with the trustees.
Yeah. And using the words adequate and appropriate, that could be interpreted many ways. Doesn't necessarily mean equal, right?
Somewhat subjective.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a hard, it's going to have to be either some trust or some other more explicit language if that's what we want to ask for. But the risk is, and as we saw in the last time we negotiated this, they talked about this document, the trustees were just walking away from the whole thing. some of which is we're okay with, but I think in my view is the senior center continuity of the senior center is really what I'm looking to get out of this agreement, and I don't know what if others think that's important or where we're see a bunch of nodding heads, but
I just don't want to see them get tucked away in some dark, cold place that doesn't even meet. I mean, the space they have now isn't
Yeah.
that large as it is. I
Yeah,
just don't want to see
yeah.
them having to downsize their space.
But we're talking temporarily is what I'm interpreting, but maybe we have to.
and maybe
be
it needs
explicit
to
about
stay
that.
temporarily
yeah,
in there.
that's
We need
what
to
I'm
put those
saying.
words in there too, maybe. Yeah. Temporary, adequate, appropriate space. Yeah. Because one of our employees will be working there as well, and that's the other thing we need to look out for. And I I know that there was a comment made about moving them into a closet, and then when I talked to Andrew last week, I mentioned potentially moving their finance people into a closet too, because putting the word may in there would allow us to do that, but it was said in jest. But it's and it's, as I said, it was one of our employees that's working in that senior space as well. Make sure that there's appropriate space, and probably shouldn't have just said what I just said, but
So
well.
I would be able to accept that if you changed that. Wording.
What's your recommendation wording?
With whatever you said, adequate.
Adequate and appropriate.
Tracy.
I mean, my intention isn't to wordsmith here, but adequate and appropriate is much more up for interpretation. Potentially provide comparable space as to what currently exists would be get more at what we're intending, is that it needs to be comparable to the
Sure.
space that's currently provided.
That's true.
Okay. Anything else? Pat, any comments?
No, I mean, I don't think that the trustees, the senior center, it's a joint project. The seniors are from the junction just as much as they are from the town. Come and visit. The trustees aren't going to stick them in some mold-ridden,
Yeah.
damp basement with, rats, trying to fight our senior citizens for cookies. It's just, I think that they'll probably accept the change of adequate and appropriate, or however we want to say it, because I think that they're sitting here with the same thoughts that we are, that we want our senior citizens to have a good space, and they need to move them temporarily. Makes sense for construction. I'm confident that they'll find decent space.
All right. So we can have discussions with the trustees as to what language they're willing to support there. Comparable. I think,
Yeah.
Tracy, thanks for that comment. Suji, you had your hand.
Just
comment?
there's the comment that we the trustees would like to better understand our.
Oh yeah. I was going to move down to the next one. Right. I did talk to it. Mentioned Andrew that it's largely the fact that we don't want to have a half year pass next year for village residents, since they will still be paying town taxes through till June 30th of 2023. They will have the ability to purchase passes to Indian Brook this time next year, and unless we have a half year pass for them, we have to come up with a whole new fee structure for them, and then police it. Rather than do that, and I think this is what I had suggested in our last discussion, was that we do it to the end of the calendar year, since the passes are by calendar year. It does give 6 months of access without contributing to any of the capital or anything beyond the fees that they pay for their passes, their annual passes. So I did explain that to Andrew. So, and he said that they were guessing that was the reason. So, yep. We're still okay with that concept.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then the next one is that same legal clause about which just we're going to the U.S. District Court in some cases if needed. Any other comments, questions, concerns about that agreement? Okay. And then the MOU is in here because of discussions that we had about the committees. I think the trustees and we are in agreement with regard to having separate committees. We still need to hear back from the Housing Commission, the Joint Housing Commission, how they want to work going forward. Essex Best is not a select board appointed committee, so that's a management directed.
But it's a town finance.
There is no town finance committee.
Essex Best money was in the budget for Essex Best, was it not?
Yeah, that's a town
Town
manager.
It's a town finance committee.
Finance the committee. I thought you said that. Okay, I thought you were asking about a town finance committee. Okay.
No, finance.
Yes.
the
Thank you. Sorry.
committee. So eventually that would have to be addressed.
The way, right, if it becomes a joint venture, then we have to figure out how it is financed. Yeah. But through FY23, things are financed through town taxes anyway. They're still paying town. Right. The village is still, the new city would be paying continue to pay town taxes for that year. And so the question, I guess, with the MOU is whether to remove the reference to an agreement about shared boards and commissions, the so-called Exhibit I. If you have any objections with dropping that, I think we're previously in agreement with taking that out.
Should we
Tracy,
leave it in until we hear from the housing? Make a
yeah,
decision.
I guess we could. Yeah. Part of the there is a desire from the trustees to have all these documents done. And so if we leave one open because of the waiting, we're not going to hear from the Housing Commission before next Monday when we have our joint meeting to talk about hopefully, possibly finalizing all these documents. I think that's the only rub there, which is okay if we want to hold it open. We can just say we're going to hold it open.
Has anything changed from when we've said at prior meetings that we weren't intending on signing anything until the legislature makes a final decision?
I am not planning. We haven't formally taken a position on that, but my recommendation is that we not sign anything until actually the legislature approves it. And I think the trustees are in agreement with that. But what we've done in the past for all the other agreements is we've approved them as tentative agreements. We haven't agreed to sign anything to actually physically put our signature on it, but we've approved things with motions. All of the prior agreements except these three, and we've also approved the MOU in the past as well. So this would be an amendment to the MOU if we want to take the committees out. Sue.
Maybe a disconnect then in expectations of next Monday's meeting, because in Brad's email it does say on 3/28 we would hope to sign the MOU with all of the exhibits attached, as well as the finance agreement and clerk treasurer's agreement.
Yeah, they can hope what they want, but I don't know. We can have a discussion about whether we want to sign. Either we can have it now or we can have it next week. I don't know what we're. I said a long time ago when we first started this that I don't think we should sign agreements because if separation doesn't pass, then we're starting from signed agreements to have negotiations about how to deal with not separating. I don't want to be in that position, but others may have a different opinion. I'm only one vote.
Technically, until they become a city. I mean, they legally can't sign it. They can't.
There's a thought that because their charter says that any agreement that the village enters into carries over to the city, that potentially they could sign now on behalf of this future city.
Until that charter is actually approved and they're given that authority.
Right, that's true. That's a good point.
Perhaps it would
That's a good point.
make sense to we've approved the tentative. I mean,
Mhm. Any other thoughts?
Sounds like we'll discuss it next Monday.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Rather than discussing it twice. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any opportunity to reach out to the housing committee to understand when we can expect to hear from them? Maybe at least then we can
Yeah. I guess we could ask.
have that piece of information.
Right. All right. We've gone through all of this. Do we want to ask for any public comment on this?
Yes.
I see a lot of nods there, so let me go back to the meeting so I can see if anybody's hands are up. Start online. Anybody online have a comment or question about this topic or the agreements? Mary Post.
Yeah, I just want to say that I hope we don't sign anything until after we know that they are to become a city, and then we can go from there. I don't see that it's necessary to do anything ahead of time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Anybody else online? Anybody in the room? Ethan.
Hi, my name's Ethan Lawrence. I'd like to make a comment about the agreement with the senior center. And I think an easy way to look at it is we've taken on the responsibility to fund the space for the shared municipal employees of the village up until 2025. I know it's changed weekly back and forth between Indian Brook and the senior center agreement. I think it's to be noted that the town, after separation in 2023, will be, a town-funded town hall, and in return, we would expect to continue our senior center services with the town employee in a space up until at least 2025, if the agreement is written that we're going to share our building to that timeline, because of the implementation of the town taxpayer paying for the space that the employees will be housed in. So
You're talking about the finance employees.
and the other employees. Currently, there's 5 employees in the building. There's no direct timeline of removing those employees. So if we do set it as 2025, I think that we should have a mutual agreement with the senior center that there's an agreement up until 2025 that we're going to have a town employee in the senior center participating with our senior bus and continuing our senior services. If we're going to give one, we should give the other. I think it's two things to look at that are totally separate, but also an agreement that will benefit both parties in the long run. It's really not much to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
So that was all I had.
I'm curious, Eva. You said town-funded building.
Yeah.
Do you mean
after
Lincoln? Do you mean Lincoln?
No, I'm talking about 81 Main Street. After July of 2023, you're gonna have employees in this building for another at least 2 years that are gonna be. It's gonna be a town-funded building only after that point when this city is created, if it's created. And the agreement was with Indian Brook was if we couldn't come, and this was last week. I'm not up to date with what the new wording is this week, but if we couldn't come to an agreement with Indian Brook, then we were kicked out of Lincoln Hall with our director for the senior center because they didn't want to share that service. So I think it's important that if we're going to share our building, when it's our building, that they continue to share their building as our community is working together in two totally different aspects, but of two very important aspects to both of our communities. It's just something to look towards as we move forward with this. And I know it keeps changing because last week we were kicked out and we weren't sharing Indian Brook, and now it's, you know, it's different. So that was all I had.
Okay,
Thank you.
Dan. Anybody else in the room or online? Okay, so we will, sure that the trustees will be talking about this again tomorrow, and then we'll be talking about it together with them a week from tonight. So let's move on. So, right. Consent agenda.
I make the motion that we approve the consent agenda to include approval of liquor licenses, revision of the select board computer use policy, to approve the minutes of March 7th, and the check warrants.
Second.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Tracy. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Oh, sorry, discussion?
Yeah, so I didn't get an answer to my question about the computer, select board computer use policy. So I know we're getting rid of item number 1, orientation, because of that training on the use of devices no longer being given under which one?
Right, there's a comment in there about getting trained how to use the help desk.
Exactly.
Yeah, I
And my
had no idea.
question is that training still going on, or is that also?
Yeah, I didn't even know there was a help desk. I just send Greg an email and say, hey.
Sorry, Sue, I missed that question come in sooner. What number is it?
I am looking for that.
It's like in 6 or something.
Oh, number, okay, yeah, the old 5, no, number 4, select board members
Yes.
will be trained in the use of the IT help desk. Yeah, I think we could simply say something, if requested or needed, and if the select board's comfortable with making that change now or that addition, I'm comfortable bringing it back to the IT department.
As needed.
Yeah, I figured if we're cleaning it up to make it so that
Yeah.
the select board signing something that is appropriate, if that is no longer appropriate.
So, yeah, this is a weird one because at our first April meeting is when we usually review all of our policies and all that. But yeah, I don't know. We okay with updating the as part of consent? I think we can do it, right? If there's an amendment to the if you add that to the motion, change that. Anybody
So moved.
have a concern with that?
Second.
Right. Okay, Pat. All right. Okay. Thank you, Sue. So we've got the amended motion. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda is approved with amendments. And then reading file. Any board member comments?
I have a question on the calendar.
Yep.
There was a joint meeting scheduled, of course it's at the end of all this, at the end of April, but I thought we had asked to wait on that one until we met and did reorganization. Is that not my...
Yeah, I think it was put on the calendar just as a placeholder, and then, yeah, we'll formalize it at our first
Okay, that's
meeting
what I
in
was
April.
curious because...
Yeah.
Okay, because I think it was the night you had to leave or you weren't here and you had said that
not
you
here, yeah, when that was done.
didn't want to set the... I just want to make sure what was going on there, that was all.
And
Go ahead, Sue.
do we have a location for next week's joint meeting?
That's right, that's my other question.
We'll be here.
Here?
And then the other question I have is the first meeting in April, have we resolved Kendall's scheduling question?
I believe he will be joining remotely for 6:30, and then it will be up to the
Okay.
board to bring it up, whether or not to continue with 6:30 or a different start time.
Okay. Kendall has a conflict that something that ends at 6:30, and then to jump immediately to select board meeting if we keep our meetings at that time. So we have in the past, back in the way past, we used to start at 7:30. And part of that was because of people's work schedules, and then it was moved back to 7:00 again because people's work schedules got a little freer maybe, and then we went to 6:30 because people like to get to bed earlier. So I guess the question is right.
You didn't have executive sessions that went till 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning either.
Yeah. So hopefully with a lot of this stuff behind us, we'll be a little more streamlined.
So he will be able to be here at the start of the meeting? Is that what you said?
I believe so. I have a meeting with him tomorrow, and I can try to confirm that.
But the question may be whether we're willing to
Change.
delay the start time on a regular basis to 7:00. There's also further discussion that after separation occurs and is complete, whether we would move to a different night to allow. We could potentially meet the same nights that the trustees meet. We don't want to do that now because you don't want to have village residents who are also town residents, unable to go to both meetings.
Right.
But there's because of the getting the packet ready for Friday, select board reviews it over the weekend, puts in the town staff sees the questions first thing Monday morning and we expect them to have an answer by the time the meeting starts. If there's another day that you can have in there by having the meetings on Tuesday night.
I would also take into consideration the school board schedule.
We would have to offset from school board meetings as well. So that's why I said it would potentially be the same night as trustee meetings. So that's a proposal that's out there in the future. It's certainly not a decision made. It's something we can talk about, but something to think about.
Can I ask a person in the audience a question? Although I know we're going to discuss this later, but
After.
No, because I'm not going to sneak around. Chore wise, is it easier for you to be here at 7 than?
My chores are done, and I'm going home to bed when I leave.
Okay, I'm just checking. I just want.
I am very flexible, and I start at 4:30 in the morning and 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah. So there's right. That puts pressure on the other end to finish
Right,
meetings in a timely fashion. Yeah. Because the time at which we used to have to vote, to whether to extend a meeting used to be midnight. Then when we moved it earlier, I said, well, let's move that in too. So we did. All right. Any other board member discussion? So the next two meetings will both be at 6:30 in this room. The next two Mondays, so 2 weeks in a row. All right, so then the last thing we need to do is the executive session discussion about tree farm. Do you have them?
I do.
Sue must have it.
Go ahead, Sue.
She always has it.
All right. I make the motion that the select board make the specific finding that general public knowledge of contracts would place the town at a substantial disadvantage.
Second.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Tracy. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. The next one?
Could you include the recreation director?
Yes.
Thank you.
Make the motion that the select board enter into executive session to discuss contracts pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1A to include the town manager, deputy manager, and the recreation director.
Second.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Don. Any further discussion? I will just say that we will not be taking any action from this, and so we will not be coming back to this meeting. We can just open the door from our executive session so that we're opening it, doing it with an open door. But we will adjourn from there. We will not reconvene back down here.
Make the motion we enter into executive session. Or that's just done.
The motion's already out there.
We're done to do that now. I'm sorry.
So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. We'll
So are we staying here and just waiting?